Angels, it's Hailey Reese and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am so excited that you are here and I hope that you are having an absolutely magical and fantastic morning, afternoon, or night, whatever it is for you when this video finally reaches you. Here today, as I am currently filming, it is one of those gloomy, stormy days that just feel eerie and cozy all at once, and for me personally are the types of days that I want to tell or listen to some spooky stories, and today I am doing just that. We are diving into, once again, some absolutely terrifying haunted doll experiences that will truly keep you up at night, especially if haunted dolls freak you out as much as they do most people. I feel like it's been a while since we've dove into some haunted doll encounters, and these ones are absolutely chilling. So I can't wait to hear what you guys think of it down in the comment section below and all of your guys' thoughts and theories. Before we get into today's video though, I would just very quickly like to thank today's video sponsor, YouGov. YouGov is an easy way to earn cash and gift cards just by simply sharing your opinions. With YouGov, you basically take online surveys to earn gift cards and cash rewards. YouGov has polls and surveys on things like brands, politics, pop culture, and products. Something that I personally love about YouGov is that I'm able to give my opinions on things that matter to me while also getting paid for it. There are polls and surveys about topics that truly matter in our world, but there are also some fun ones as well. Like, what superstitions are Americans most likely to believe? I honestly just really love that I can use YouGov to fund a dinner out or a spa day just by giving my opinion. I will have a link at the very top of my description. Make sure you guys click that link to start making money. And thank you so much to YouGov for sponsoring today's video. But without further ado, let's get into these haunted doll encounters. So this first story begins with a young girl named Sophia. Now, Sophia was raised in an extremely spiritual family. Her family often practiced different spells for abundance, love, prosperity, and while they always danced in the light, they were really open to all things to do with the other side. And because of this, they often made friends with people with like-minded views and spiritual practices. Now, before Sophia was even born, her mother had made very close friends with a woman named Margaret, and Margaret was a self-proclaimed witch. She often communicated with the other side and would make different herbal blends and baths and just things of that nature to do with the other side and to bring forth good luck, prosperity, love, all of the above. I hate when I unintentionally rhyme like that, but it's the truth. Sophia actually doesn't remember a time in her life that she wasn't close with Margaret. Margaret often came over and would do different rituals with her parents and would often teach Sophia from a very small age how to protect herself, bubble herself, and to keep her energy safe. And when Sophia was just 4 years old, Margaret would gift Sophia a doll. Now, Sophia said that her and her family often had different taste than most people, and while looking at this doll may have frightened other children, Sophia loved how original this doll looked. She described the doll as a porcelain doll with human-looking hair, eyelashes, and fingernails. She said even though she was a little girl, she remembered looking at certain features on the doll and feeling like the doll was lifelike, and the two of them immediately became best friends. Now, the only thing that Margaret told Sophia about the doll was that the doll had feelings and the doll needed to be taken care of and loved, and to be very careful with her, to give her attention, and to treat the doll as kind as she could. And Sophia took this role very seriously. She began playing with this doll every single day throughout all of her childhood and would often talk to the doll about everything going on in her life. All throughout her childhood, Sophia would talk to this doll as if she were a real human friend of hers and confide in her for everything. And from a very small age, Sophia felt like this doll had a soul. This doll felt real to her. And one thing that she would notice about this doll was that every so often she would have to cut the doll's fingernails. The doll's hair and the doll's fingernails would actually appear to be growing. Even Sophia's parents felt there was something very special about this doll, even though Margaret never really told them the history of the doll or why she'd even gifted it to Sophia. But because it came from Margaret, who often did different spells and, really dabbled in the other side, they felt like there had to be something special about this doll. So basically everyone in this home respected this doll as if it had a soul. As Sophia started getting older, she was playing with the doll less and less, but the respect that she had for the doll never changed. When she would come home from school as a teenager, she would still talk to the doll, say hi to the doll, and tell the doll about her day. She almost described it as therapeutic. This doll had been with her throughout her entire childhood and had been something that she would always talk to, so it almost felt like therapy for her to confide in the doll every single day. Margaret was still close with the family at the time, but didn't talk about the doll often, and it just kind of became part of Sophia's furniture, if you will. Wherever they moved, wherever they went, that doll was always placed in a nice spot in Sophia's room, and Sophia would talk with the doll. Now eventually, Sophia got older, met a boy that she fell in love with, and would later get married, and the two of them would move into their own house together. Now, Sophia's husband was not particularly keen on the doll. He said the moment that he saw the doll, he was extremely uncomfortable, and there was something about it that didn't feel quite right to him. He described it as almost feeling like the doll was constantly watching him. He also really didn't like the way that the doll's fingernails and just overall appearance looked. He felt like the doll felt more real than it was, but it was porcelain, and all of it just felt very unsettling. But because he loved his wife and he valued things that were important to her, he agreed that the doll could stay in the house as long as the doll wasn't in their bedroom. Sophia said that she found a nice spot for the doll in the living room, and that she even communicated to the doll, "This is your new home now, I hope that you love it," and was still loving and sweet towards the doll. Sophia, as she would do her day-to-day chores, would still talk to the doll as married life went on, and as her life just continued, she still felt like it was therapy to talk to the doll. If her husband would upset her, or work was getting tough, or she didn't get the promotion she wanted, she would talk to the doll about it every single day, carrying on her childhood traditions. And while her husband wasn't particularly keen on it, he thought it was kind of cute that even though she'd grown up, she still had that little bit of kid in her, despite how strange the doll looked. As life went on, eventually Sophia would find out that she was going to be a mother, and this was one of the greatest days of her entire life. They had been trying for a while to have a baby, and Sophia felt like it might not happen for them. And so when she unexpectedly found out that she was in fact pregnant, Sophia felt like every prayer she'd ever prayed was answered. Sophia would talk to her doll all about how excited she was to be a mom, would tell her doll how big the baby was getting, what the different names they were contemplating were, and still talk to the doll about everything going on in her life as far as pregnancy went. And eventually, Sophia would give birth to a beautiful, healthy baby girl. Now, obviously, becoming a mother, especially a first-time mother, is a huge transition, and Sophia had her hands full. As Sophia got busier and busier, she was talking to her doll less and less. She now had a baby to take care of. She was exhausted. She had so much on her plate that talking to the doll, as therapeutic as it was becoming further and further between one another. Sophia said she would still talk to the doll when she had a moment to, but it wasn't like it had been for her entire life, where every day at some point during the day, Sophia would talk to this doll. At first, everything seemed to be okay. While Sophia wasn't talking to the doll quite as much, nothing seemed to change. But when the baby was around 1 year old, Sophia still wasn't talking to the doll as much as she used to. Life had taken its toll. Life was busy and exciting and this whole new adventure, and Sophia just didn't have the time that she used to spend talking to the doll. Sophia said that her baby was sleeping through the night. She was such a good baby, a happy baby, and then all of a sudden everything switched. her baby would randomly start crying at random times throughout the day, but not a regular cry. It was more so of a scream. Sophia started to take note that when her baby would scream in this nature, she would notice scratches on the baby and thought that maybe her daughter was scratching herself. So she would cut her nails down shorter to make sure that she wouldn't be able to scratch herself so badly. But soon this started happening in the middle of the night. One day, Sophia had put her 1-year-old down for a nap, and she'd been sleeping peacefully for about 20 minutes. And that was when all of a sudden, Sophia heard her daughter start screaming. And as she approached her daughter, she saw scratch marks straight down her daughter's face. Sophia said that the cuts were not just red, they were bleeding at some points, and she just knew deep down that her daughter had not done this to herself. She said immediately she had a gut-wrenching feeling that something was very wrong. And for the following nights, the same thing would happen, but the scratches would appear in different places. Even eerier, one night when her daughter woke up screaming, she was not only crying when Sophia went into her room, but the mirror in her daughter's room had a big crack in it. At this point, Sophia's husband opened up to her and said that he had a really bad feeling about everything going on and that he'd been having nightmares involving Sophia's doll. That in these dreams, he would see Sophia's doll next to their daughter and that the doll was scratching her in the dream with her nails. Now, Sophia said she knew something was very wrong here and she had a feeling it was paranormal or to do with some sort of entity. But she was a little bit offended that her husband would ever insinuate that it would be her doll. Sophia actually got quite upset with her husband for insinuating that her doll had anything to do with it. But the next day, while her daughter was down for a nap, Sophia went over to look at her doll for the first time in a couple of months. And that's when she saw that her doll's nails had grown longer than they ever had in the entire time Sophia had had the doll. And there was what appeared to be blood on the end of the doll's nails. Sophia called her mother and told her everything, and her mom said she would reach out to her friend and that she'd have her give Sophia a call, but that she highly doubted it was anything to do with the doll, that they should just cleanse the space and perhaps in their new home there's some sort of entity in it. But Sophia would receive a disturbing phone call from her mother's friend. Sophia's mother's friend would tell her that the doll was very angry with her. She told Sophia that that wasn't just a doll. The soul of a little girl was attached to that doll, and it was becoming increasingly jealous, that that energy wanted that little girl gone. She told Sophia that she was going to be coming over and taking back the doll immediately, and they would have to cleanse both her daughter and the house multiple times. When all was said and done, she had told Sophia that she was so grateful she picked up on the signs and the warnings because things were only going to get worse, that this was a very jealous entity that wanted Sophia to herself and wanted that baby out of that house because ever since the baby came in, Sophia didn't care about her anymore. Sophia said after the doll had been gotten rid of and the entire house was cleansed, she started having dreams about this doll. And in these nightmares, there would be the doll telling her how dare she neglect her like that. She's had her since she was a little girl. Is she not important to her? She's gonna find her way back. And that she wants the soul of the baby, that she wants to inhabit her baby. Sophia says that she truly believes that if they hadn't intervened when they did, that that entity would try to take over the body of her daughter. Sophia said it took almost a year for the home to feel nearly back to normal, and her daughter is now older and has no recollection of any of this. She never fully ended up asking, but Sophia claims that she feels as though that was not the soul of a little girl, and that that was a dark, demonic entity or a negative spirit that had ill intentions when it wasn't getting its way. But Sophia says when she thinks about it, she gets really, really unsettled, imagining the fact that she spent all of her childhood and teenage years into her adulthood with an unknown entity whose intentions were never truly made clear. But what she did know was it had formed an attachment to her. I don't know. I find it a little bit strange that her mom's friend would gift her this doll and not explain to her parents or her that it actually had a spirit attached to it, regardless of the nature of the spirit. And I just think that it's so disturbing to think that Sophia had no idea the true depths of the doll and what it would have done to her daughter if they hadn't figured out that that's what was happening. But either way, I am so curious to know what you guys think of that encounter down in the comment section below. And let's get into story number 2. All right, so this next story was actually sent in to me, and when I skimmed it, you guys, I had goosebumps just by skimming it, so I felt like I would have to share this story with you guys as well and react to it together. So without further ado, let's read this experience posted online. When I was around 6, my family moved into a new house. My parents wanted us to be part of the community, so they made sure we met all of our neighbors. On one side was a girl a few years older than me, named Sally, and on the other was an old man named Mr. Johnson. I thought Mr. Johnson was really creepy at first. His skin was paper thin, and he would fall asleep on his front porch with his teeth in his lap. I didn't like Mr. Johnson at all. At least not until the day he gave me Daisy. "Mindy, over here, sweetie," Mr. Johnson called out to me one hot summer afternoon. I approached tentatively, afraid his teeth would fall out yet again. "Do you like dollies by any chance, Mindy?" he asked, giving me a gummy smile. "I love dollies, Mr. Johnson. They're my favorite toy," I said back excitedly. As afraid as I was of Mr. Johnson, my love for dolls was far greater. "Well then, do I have a surprise for you. How would you like a new dolly?" "Well, she's not exactly brand new, but she'd be new to you," Mr. Johnson said as he slowly got up from his rocking chair. "She was my daughter's when she was your age. She's gone away now, though, and I feel like her doll would like a new home." "I'd love to meet her, Mr. Johnson," I said, giving him a gap-toothed smile. I waited outside excitedly, and after what felt like an eternity, Mr. Johnson came back holding a large plastic doll. The doll was incredible. It was the same height as me and made of hard plastic. Its clothes were old and faded, but still in good shape. "This here is Daisy," Mr. Johnson said as he handed the doll to me. It was heavy, much heavier than any doll I had ever held before. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I'll make sure to take good care of her," I said cheerfully. "That you do, Mindy, that you do," Mr. Johnson said as he sat back down in his chair. I hurriedly took my new friend home to show my parents. They seemed concerned that I had stolen the doll from Mr. Johnson, but he assured them it was a gift. For the next few months, Daisy and me were inseparable. I would take her absolutely everywhere and anywhere with me, and she would sleep in my bed with me. It was only inevitable that she would get damaged somehow, especially given how old she was. We were playing Tea Party when I accidentally knocked her off her chair and cracked the side of her head on the floor. I immediately burst into tears. I had just hurt my favorite doll, my best friend. My mom came rushing in and saw the scene and scooped me up in her arms, doing her best to comfort me. "Don't worry, little Mindy. Mommy's gonna make Daisy all better, I promise," I remember her telling me as she carried me around the house. Once I was finally calmed down, my mom and me took Daisy to a repair store downtown. They told us it was a pretty severe crack, but they would do the best they could. But it could take a few days though. A few days later, my mom received a call from the toy repair store. I couldn't hear what they were saying on their end, but they sounded furious at my mom. I remember her telling me she had to run out real fast and take care of some stuff, but she'd be back in a jiffy. When she returned home, I was so excited to get Daisy back. I missed my best friend so much. Instead, my mom returned empty-handed. "Where's Daisy, Mommy?" I asked her confused. Tears welled up in my mom's eyes. "Daisy's not coming home anymore, sweetie, but come on, we'll get you a new best friend," she said as she took my hand. "But I don't want a new best friend, Mommy. I want Daisy," I whined. "Daisy's gone forever, and never take anything from anyone without my permission again," my mom snapped as tears fell down her cheeks. I was scared and confused. Did I do something wrong? Was there something wrong with Daisy? I rode in the car with my mom silently until we got to our destination. We were at the local pound. My heart lit up with excitement that night that we brought home my new best friend, Max the Mutt. Max quickly replaced Daisy in my heart, and Daisy faded into what was only a memory. Until last week. I was cleaning out a box from my parents' attic when I came across a box full of family pictures. There, in the middle of one of the binders, was a picture of me sitting next to Daisy. The memories came flooding back. I brought the picture down and found my mom sitting in her living room. "Hey Mom, look what I found. An old picture of me and my doll Daisy," I said with a smile as I gave her the picture. My mom began shaking. Tears welled up behind her eyes. "Is everything okay, Mom?" I asked worriedly. "I was hoping you'd forgotten about Daisy. I was hoping you'd never remember that sick joke that monster played on you," she said with a tremble in her voice. "What do you mean, Mom?" Mr. Johnson? I replied. You're old enough now. You deserve to know the truth, she began. Do you remember when you knocked Daisy down and cracked her head? Yeah, of course. And then a few days later we got Max, right? Yes. The reason why we got Max was because of what they found when repairing Daisy. You see, they weren't going to be able to patch her head up very easily, so they would have to remove the broken pieces and replace the whole section. However, when they took the pieces away, they found something inside of Daisy, my mom said with glassy-looking eyes. What do you mean, they found something inside of Daisy? I asked, unsure. My mom suddenly looked directly at me and grabbed my hand. I'm so sorry, Mindy. I should have looked at your doll before saying you could have it. I should have given it an inspection or something. I should have been a better mother. My mom pleaded with me. Mom, what did they find inside of Daisy? I reiterated. Inside of your doll was the remains of Mr. Johnson's daughter. He had cut her throat and stuffed it in that plastic tomb years before keeping her young and perfect forever. And when he was done with her, he gave her to you as one final sick stunt. Daisy wasn't just the doll's name. It was his daughter's. And that's the end of that experience. Ooh! That gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like, can you imagine being a little girl and getting a gift and snuggling with it in bed, keeping it everywhere with you, and it has someone's daughter's remains inside of it? Guys, I have goosebumps. I cannot even fathom that. What do you guys think of that experience? Honest to goodness, I have absolute chills just even imagining that. Imagine growing up and finding out this doll that was your best friend, that you cuddled, that you loved, had another little girl's remains inside of it. Like, what? What do you guys think of that particular encounter, and what do you think his intention was behind giving her the doll? Do you think it was a pure intention, or do you think it was sick and messed up, as her mother said? I mean, obviously that's sick and messed up, but do you think that the intention to give it to the little girl was sick and messed up, or do you think that may have been a pure intention? Definitely let me know in the comment section below. Well, you guys, that is basically it for today's video. I would absolutely love to know which one freaked you out the most and what your thoughts and opinions are on the stories down in the comment section below. And once again, I would just absolutely love to thank YouGov for sponsoring today's video. As I mentioned, I will have a link at the very top of my description. Make sure you click the link in my description to start making money, and thank you so much to YouGov for sponsoring. If you guys are new to my channel, or you are just not yet subscribed but you do enjoy my content, I would seriously love it more than you will ever know if you would go ahead and click that subscribe button, and please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness, and until next time, I love you.